Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone, and thank you all so much for coming out to our Summer Village training. We are excited about how God is continuing to grow and bless this initiative that we started just about a year and a half ago. And I want to thank you all for all of the individual roles that you've played in making this community building effort at Alfred Street possible. Let me start by celebrating who are my folks who are returning. You're coming back for another season. You've already facilitated and hosted. Yeah, amen. Thank God for you. And then we have a few new people I know who are trickling in and who have come. Where are our new folks? Let's celebrate our new folks. We thank them so much. Without you, we can't continue to grow. We can't continue to offer this amazing experience to more and more of our Alfred Street family members. And so we know it means a lot for you to step up and lead. We know every now and then some of y'all got here because either I pulled your teeth or somebody else pulled your teeth or a deacon was like, come on, you're going to lead a village. We want to say thank you for taking this leap of faith and for going along with us. We are headed into our third official season of Village, and we are excited. On last season, about 50 some groups were blessed to have this experience, and we're hoping to have even more groups experience all that God is doing as we continue to move from crowd to community. We've got a lot to talk about today, so let's pray and we'll get things started. Gracious God, we thank you for the gift of another day of life. God, we thank you that early this morning you met us with love, grace, and mercy. We thank you that your presence is real and felt in this space, God, and most of all, we thank you for the lives that you have connected us with here at the Alfred Street Baptist Church. God, I thank you for each and every person who has stepped up to volunteer. God, I thank you for each and every villager who will be coming back. God, I thank you for the new lives that will be connected to this experience. God, we are especially grateful for the ways in which you continue to grow and groom us and mature and deepen our faith. God, we recognize that the more we get connected and closer to you, the better and easier life becomes. So God, thank you for your Holy Spirit that continues to sharpen us and to prepare us for all that lies ahead. God, we thank you for the many blessings, God, for the amazing experiences and conversations we will have, God, for the new relationships and bonds that will be formed in this season. God, we give you gratitude for all that you are doing. And God, now we simply ask that you would guide this time of training and preparation so that we might leave here better equipped to lead your people into all that you are calling us to become. We love you, God, and we turn this time over to you now in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Again, well, welcome and good morning. We're going to throw some slides up on the screen. Before I get right into the heart of our material, I want to say this. We got a lot to cover today. I want to share my gratitude again for you all being here. Pastor Wesley is going to join us in a few minutes to share his gratitude as well. As we go through subject by subject of all the ins and outs of being a part of Village, one thing I want you all to know, we're not going to have a set aside time for Q&A at the end of this. I want you all to come to any of these mics and interrupt me with your questions as they come to mind, okay? Don't miss your opportunity to ask a great question. I'm sure if you are thinking it, somebody else is thinking of it as well. But please be sure when that question pops into your mind to come to one of these microphones. We have a few folks who couldn't be with us here today, as well as some folks that you know who lead villages in other parts of the world that are not in the DMV area. They're tuning in live to join us in their training experience. So we want them to be able to hear what you're asking so I don't have to repeat your question because then, I just messed the question up anyway. I want them to hear it from you. So please, whenever you feel a question or a comment that's arising in your spirit, please come to the mic and share that with us. Bobby, can I get my slides up in just a second? This season, I want us to focus on three very important questions. There's three questions that I want us to focus on that will center us and kind of drive our experience as we go forward that I want you to keep in mind every week as you get ready for your village. Ask yourself these three things that a lot of us are feeling and thinking and want to experience. And those three questions are simply this: are we connected? Do we share a future? And are we safe? Are we connected? Do we share a future? And are we safe? Are we connected? Are we feeling that the bonds are growing stronger each and every time we gather, right? Is this something that is just an exercise that I'm doing out of habit, or are we really here building meaningful and lasting and lifelong relationships? And not just are we connected in our village, but are we connected in the systems and structures that we use to make this program possible? Are you communicating with each other as a team of facilitators and hosts? And are you communicating with the village team and all the folks who work with me to help make this program possible? I will stress this over and over again. We need to hear from you as constantly as we can. I know the surveys seem like a lot. I know sometimes I blow up your cell phones and ask you how things are going, but that is super important for the success and the vitality of this program. Are we hearing from you? I tell you all the time, and I want to encourage you to do it more and more. Drop us an email. Let us know how things are going, village@alfredstreet.org. That's the best way for you to communicate with us and for us to keep a tabs on how things are going. Some weeks are going to be hot, some weeks are going to be cold, some weeks are going to be lukewarm, but we want to know how things are going. We want to get a temperature of how you all are feeling and thinking. And why is that so important? Because Alfred Street is taking a leap of faith by doing off-campus ministry. Typically in traditional church, and the way we've done it for so many years here, is we have a classroom meeting down the hall with this workshop. We've got something going on across the street. We've got something going on upstairs. And when that's right here on campus, we know exactly how things are going. We can see your faces as you go to the parking lot to know whether or not you enjoyed it, whether or not you felt good about it. We don't have that in Village, right? I send people, some of you all have had a little visitor come and show up, right, to say, hey, checking on how things are going, but I can't visit every village. But we do always want to know how things are going, so we encourage you to stop in, to share a note, and to just let us know how things are going. That helps us stay connected. It helps us stay closer in our walk with each other. And the other major piece of connectivity that really matters a lot is attendance. Now, how many of you all can be honest and say we had a little bit of attendance struggles in our last season? Okay, not too many, but a few, right? We saw that, we noticed what was going on, but we are really going to emphasize, especially at the beginning of the season when people sign up next month, the importance of making this commitment to be there. Attendance matters a lot. If we're not there with the same group of people, with the same nucleus of folk week after week, then we'll become disenchanted and we're less likely to feel comfortable and to be vulnerable in the spaces. And so connectivity and attendance really matters, and it really makes a difference. You all will see instructions in your village manual. Does everybody have a manual? Have you downloaded a manual? Amen. Handbook, yes. That long document, it's got lots of great material in there in those 70 pages. And so we want to make sure that you get that and that you read and work your way through it. I have a few paper copies left for those of you who may not be electronically minded, and I will get you a paper copy at the end of the day if you so desire. But in there we talk a lot about attendance and taking attendance through My Attendance Tracker. Did that work well for you all last time? My Attendance Tracker is working well? Okay. Good. We need you to continue to put that attendance in there, and I'm going to tell you this, word of heads up, we're going to be really strict this season about attendance. So we have our little rule where if you're not there for those first kind of 2 weeks, you're bumped. We were lenient on some. I had some folk call in and say, can I make an excuse for this or that? We're going to be really strict on attendance, because if we don't have great attendance, it dampens our chances for real connectivity that matters. And to know that this program, we believe, as it's been in previous seasons, is just going to fill up again. And we don't want to save spaces for people who are not committed. And so we're going to ask folks early on during that first week, where there's going to be a video that we're going to have you all play in your host homes that's going to tell people about what type of commitment it takes to really make the village experience all that it should be and all that it can be. And to ask people in the nicest way possible, if you can't fully commit to this season, we would love to have you in another season. All right? And it's okay to say that I know it's tough. I know it's hard. You feel like, forget you if you can't do this. No. If you can't commit to building community in this season, we would love to have you back in our next season, because connection matters. Connection is what this is all about. The next question is simply, do we share a future? And do we share a future is likewise connected to these levels of commitment. Do I feel like we are going somewhere and that we'll become something different 12 weeks down the road or 2 years down the road? I feel like I'm investing in something that's going to have a long-term benefits? Otherwise, if I don't feel the sense in this environment that we have a future together, then I'm just not going to feel like it's worth me pouring all into this space that I need to pour into, right? But when we begin to pray with each other through some of life's most difficult moments, we begin to sense that there's a greater goal for where we're headed, for where we are going. Do we share a future also shows up in really major ways in terms of how we affirm and celebrate our villagers. We'll be sending you all some reminder emails throughout the season that one of the greatest things you can do for the people you're in community with is to affirm them, is to celebrate them, is to say, hey, you did this thing great. I really saw the way you stepped up in this conversation. You had a really great idea, Sherry, and I thank you for bringing that to the table, for bringing that to this space. As we affirm and as we celebrate people, it helps people to step up and see where they can further deepen their engagement and grow into this space and to grow into all that God is calling them to be. So be sure that you are always making time and space for affirmations and celebrations of your villagers, because that helps people see that they're becoming something greater than what they were when they walked in. And then the last question, are we safe? This one is huge, it's huge, it's huge. People are taking a risk to step into the village. Some of you all know what it was like that first time you were in the room with a bunch of strangers. How did it feel? Okay, y'all were comfortable with it. Some people may have felt awkward, a little uneasy, right? There's that tension there. And we tried to do everything that we can possibly do to make people feel as safe as possible. Not just safe to be surrounded in these strangers, but safe to be able to share, and most of all, safe to be able to feel vulnerable in this space. That's the most important thing. So always kind of asking this question, do my people around me feel safe? And do they feel safe to be their entire selves in this place? Alfred Street is a diverse church, and as Village continues to grow and as our church continues to grow, it will only get more and more diverse. And so we're creating safe spaces for all of God's children, regardless of their identity, regardless of who they are, regardless of their theological beliefs, or regardless of the style of their religious upbringing. So many people are coming to this place that just didn't grow up in the situations that you or I did. I notice all the time, and we talk about it as a pastoral staff here at Alfred Street, lots of us grew up in very different style churches. All right, so my family, my folk, my religious heritage is from South Carolina in the country, a place called Honeypath, South Carolina. The way they worship God down there looked nothing like the way we worship God in Alfred Street on Sunday morning. And I'm always reminded of the fact that, hey, there's a little bit of that country preacher in me, and I've got to figure out how to navigate that space when I step into, this great, cathedral, as my grandmama likes to call it. So remind yourself all the time that there are people who grew up in spaces that look totally different from you, totally different than how your family was raised, and to know that that's okay, and there's a beauty and a connectivity that is birthed when we embrace the diversity that's there and we make sure that everybody feels safe. And what's one of the biggest tactics we can use to make people feel safe? What's one of the things that we emphasize in week 1 during our covenant? Who can tell me? What's one of the greatest tools for building safety? What was that, Stephanie? A hug? Yes, hugs help, yes. Listen. And then I heard it from Deacon Pat, confidentiality. That's the word we were looking for, confidentiality. I know some of you all, your villages are a tight fortress. I know because when I call you, I can't get a word out of what's going on. So I know some of you all have done a great job in confidentiality. With me and with the village team, when we contact you, understand that's a safe space to share. But in all other settings and environments, we do want to emphasize confidentiality. I want to celebrate the confidentiality you've already provided, but also to know that just because you're not going to share anything out of this circle, still telling people that it's going to be confidential makes a huge difference, right? So I trust you all. I've seen the way you all operate. I know that you are great with holding and keeping a safeguard over people's experiences, testimonies, stories, and prayer concerns. But sometimes it's good just to verbalize that is exactly what you're going to do, right? To let people know from the very beginning that this is a confidential, safe space. And to emphasize that over and over again, because that really makes a huge difference in how people feel and how people are doing. So think about those 3 questions. Let that be kind of the drum roll that runs through your mind at the beginning of, well, if you're a Monday villager, if you're a Thursday village, think about that at the top of the morning. Are we connected? Do we share a future? And are we safe? And allow those questions to guide your journey. As we go forward, let's look at a particular scripture. There's two passages that I want to give today. Every season, I feel like God shares something new with us for us to consider. We started off with the launch of Village. We were considering that Mark 2 passage, right? And we talked about the 4 friends that carry their one friend to Jesus and the community that is built out of that. There's another passage that I want us to look at this season that I really feel like will set a good and healthy framework and show another particular lens on why building community is so important. And this comes from Job chapter 2. Job chapter 2, many of us know Job's story. Job, this man who goes through all sorts of tremendous trauma and struggle and loses everything in basically one opening chapter. He loses property, wealth, family. He loses his children. His health is destroyed. And in the end of chapter 2, at verse 11, we hear these words. It says, "Now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this adversity that had come upon him, each one came from his own place. Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. For they had made an appointment together to come and mourn with him and to comfort him. And when they raised their eyes from afar and did not recognize him, they lifted their voices and wept. And each one tore his robe and sprinkled dust on his head toward heaven. So they sat down with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his grief was very great." Job has just gone through one of the worst scenarios, situations, seasons of his life. He's lucky to have what all of us really hope to have in life is 3 friends. I'll tell you time and time again that lots of people are in church or on the fringes of church. We're here because there's a part of us that always feels lonely. Having 3 friends, right? And I know sometimes, let me pause and say this. Lots of us have heard bad things about Job's friends. I'm going to get to that. We're going to deal with that in a second, right? How many of y'all have heard a critique of Job's friends, right? Before we get to the scriptures where Job's friends mess up a little bit, we have in the end of chapter 2, Job's friends doing something that is very helpful and powerful, and it sets an example and the stage for all of us. They show up with the power of presence. You heard in that verse 13, they had no words. We all know that Job's friends later, for the next 30-something chapters of Job, get into this dialogue where they go back and forth, where they're kind of arguing, having these discussions about God and theology and faith. But before they do that, the Bible says they sit with him for 7 days without saying a thing. They provide one of the most important things that we can give, the ministry of presence. That they are there with him. They drop everything that they're doing. You notice it's Eliphaz, the Temanite, right? They're coming from these different lands. They're traveling to come meet with Job and be with Job in his season of hardship. If they can travel from Temanite and Naamathite and all those places that I can't pronounce or remember, if they can travel from all those ways, we can make that commute 10 minutes to be with our village and to be present with everybody. You never know what somebody may have experienced in the last 7 days between when you saw them and when you didn't. Ministry of presence and prayer means so much to people. And so I use Job's friends as a model because they provide ministry and presence. And then I also use Job's friends because I believe the imperfect nature of their dialogue shows us something about building community. So we talked about how we criticize Job's friends because they ask these kind of piercing and probing questions about God and about Job's struggle. They begin to challenge him and push him back on issues of faith. And while they may not be perfect in their response, at least they are having dialogue about God and about theology and about faith. That's what's so important about Village. You're told, right, growing up, a lot of us are told not to talk about 3 things at the dinner table, right? It's religion, sex, and politics, right? That's kind of like the standard for our culture, right? We don't talk about those 3 things. Problem is, if we're never having conversations about our religion and our faith, how is it growing, right? And we're told not to talk about it because a lot of us don't feel like we have the training, or we don't have the material or the tools that we need to adequately unpack conversations of faith. The reason why we have some 30-something chapters in Job where people are having a dialogue about faith is a reminder that it's actually something important for us to do, that it's a necessary exercise, and that even when we don't get it right, what happens? Job comes out of the end of this book with a clearer and sharper understanding of who God is to him in his own life. He doesn't take everything that his friends say, but some of the ideas and the critiques and the constructs that his friends lift up help to empower his faith journey going forward. Are we having those conversations? That's what we are striving to do in Village. That is really kind of the underlying purpose, this uncomfortable and challenging dialogue that Job has. He discovers so much about himself, and he discovers so much about his God. And if he was sitting in a space of isolation, he would have never come to these realizations. He would have never felt that love and that presence and that power. And so we really encourage those conversations that force us to really think about and wrestle with God. So that's one level. That's the spiritual growth component, right? That's the community building component. And then there's something else that I want us to think about this season, and I call it kind of our journey or our connection funnel. And forgive me for this, for being a little small. You will get all of these materials digitally next week. But I want us to begin to think about how we further integrate and engage people in the life of Alfred Street Baptist Church. So we kind of call this the journey. This is the trajectory that we see when people first become connected and encounter this space. What's the first thing that's our priority? We want people to meet and have a relationship with Jesus Christ. That's our most important thing. And then the second thing that people do is they experience the power of Alfred Street Baptist Church. They come here for worship on Sunday or a Saturday, and they experience all that we do when we worship God in this space, on our amazing worship services, also on the first Wednesday of the month at our Kaya services, and then in our youth and children's worship service. But after we do that, the next most important step is to get them connected in community. Because Pastor says it all the time, if we're just here on Sunday worshiping, you're missing out on all that God has to offer, and you're living a life in isolation. We need people to get connected in the community, so that's where you come in. They come and get connected, they meet people in their local neighborhood, and they grow in a village. And then what is the next step? And this, I'm grateful for those of you who kind of asked and said, hey, where are we trying to get people to go after this 12-week journey? The next thing that we are pushing for is to find a way that meets the individual's needs to serve in our community. Right? It's one of the greatest gifts of Alfred Street Baptist Church is the amazing service work we're doing. Some of you all have kids across the street right now who are packing school supplies for Brother's Keeper. We applaud that and we celebrate that. The amazing thing that we want people to experience in Village is that as you as a facilitator gets to know each and every one of those 12 individuals, you become acquainted with their gifts, with their talents, with their skill sets. You get to know things about them that I'll never get to know about them just being here on Sunday mornings. But you all spend week after week with them. You know their testimonies, you know what they have a heart for, and because you know that information, you are the best person to recommend a way for them to get more connected and for them to find the service opportunity that works for them. So a lot of you, when you joined Alfred Street, your experience was like me, right? You joined in a room and you got that list with like 80 ministries on it, right? And you might have been overwhelmed. I know I was. I was like, what in the world? This is a lot of stuff. I see I have a witness. We're going to make it even easier and way more engaging because as you get to know them, you'll know exactly what to point them towards. So I want to invite you and encourage you all to do something as facilitators and hosts even now. I want you to begin to get familiar with some of the great service opportunities that we have at Alfred Street, right? To dig into that website. Yes, can you come to the mic for me? Or I'll grab a mic for you. But thank you for raising your hand. We don't want to miss any questions. And yes, my volunteers, thank you, Reverend Montrez. Y'all can help people with microphones. Yes, my sister. And give us your name, please.
Thank you. I'm Kim Crabb. Nice to meet you. Good morning, everyone. I just had a quick question as you were explaining where Village is going. Is it the intention that Alfred Street is going to open up something else in another area, like a church or something? Is that the long-term strategy?
I'm gonna let Pastor dig into that, but
strategically thinking.
You're not too far off of certain things. Amen. Let's start with the service piece and the service projects. But appreciate you, Kimberly. We are going to come back. Yes, you have an answer coming. Thank you for that. We do want to make sure that our impact in our community, right, continues to grow and continues to flourish and spread. And we never want, really, Village at its best would get to a point where we don't even have to advertise volunteer signups, where Pastor Wesley or myself doesn't have to stand here in the pulpit and say, hey, we need volunteers to feed the 5,000, because you all know people in your group who are hungry and ready to serve. So one of the changes that we're going to make starting this season, I know some of you, I want to thank you and applaud you. You all reached out and told us, hey, Elijah, we did this great service project, or our village collected items for this group or that group. We want you to say, instead of doing things in our own communities, we want to continue to funnel people back into the amazing projects and service opportunities that we already have taking place here. Okay, so let's get familiar with those and let's work on this, continuing this engagement funnel, because we know that once you have a relationship with Jesus, once you've experienced worship, once you've gotten connected in community, and once you've served, you'll be ready to give back to God and to create that opportunity for somebody else to experience this same funnel and this same journey. So that's kind of a structure that we want you to think about, a flow for how someone who first encounters this place or encounters our God will continue to deepen their faith, and for where we are headed in our future and for where we are going. 3 things that I want us to focus on for this new season of Village. And let me pause right here and celebrate. I said this is our 3rd season. This is our 3rd official, but this is really kind of our 4th season that we're going into. Where are all my beta people? I see Ron and Sherry. I see Whitney. Yes, Earl and Lawrence and Ashley. I want to celebrate them. Can you all clap it up for all the folks who started with us the very beginning of February of 2018. They've been in this for the long haul and been making it possible. And so I just want to always pause and celebrate them. As we enter a new season and as we continue to grow this program, there's certain dynamics that I want us to think about. The first big one is multiplication. And you all have heard me say this and emphasize this, but I'm going to be a broken record and say this over and over again. We got to grow this thing. We got to grow this thing. We got to grow this thing. And how do we grow this? How do we grow Village? We multiply. And how do we multiply? We identify new leaders who can break out of our village and begin to start a group of their own. Amen. Amen. At least I got one amen. I see some of you are like, no. I know it is so hard to let go of folks. And I know it's especially hard to let go of some of the individuals who may seem like they're the most gifted people in your group. But when we hold on to each other, we prevent the opportunity for somebody else to be able to experience the power of Village. Listen, I am committed to a goal that we set at the very top of this thing. Our goal is to have 40% of our congregation actively involved in a village by 2021. And in order for us to do that, 40%, that's like 3,000 something people, right? In order for us to do that, we've got to have way more of these villages. In order for some new member who joins on Sunday to immediately get connected in a group the next week, there has to be room in the village in their neighborhood in Bowie or Upper Marlboro or in Southeast DC. So we're continuing to create those spaces, and I want to thank those of you who were working with us to help us convince some new people to step up. We celebrated our new people at the beginning of this session, but we're going to need you to continue to do that. Identify those gifts early on, celebrate and affirm those gifts early on, and then help us get connected with them, and we will take it from there to massage them and get them to know that anybody who is willing to make the commitment to letting God and the Holy Spirit lead them will be able to have a successful Village season as a facilitator or as a host. All right? So we are going to focus on multiplication. I see some questions about that. Let's get some mics to Stephanie and Mari so we can hear these questions. I saw them up here on the side.
This is just going back to expanding on having more members. As a part of the membership intake process, is there like a facilitator or anyone that's a part of the village, is a part of new members?
That's a part of the new members orientation process?
New members orientation part, or when new members are coming in, do you have anybody from either one of those groups as a part of that process? It's just one way to get contact for the new members.
That's a great idea. Yeah, so our deacons lead our new members orientation, and many of them are on our Village team or have helped with it in the past. And so, they do speak about Village, and they encourage folks to sign up, and we will continue to work on that process. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. To answer your question, yes, I'm also an instructor on new members orientation, and it is something that we highlight, not as much as maybe we should, but definitely we do get the word out. As someone who's done facilitating, and one of the lessons I learned, and I'm still trying to figure out how to work it, is where I feel that as a facilitator, I should only be listening, not talking, because when you have a group of 12 and you have 90 minutes to have this discussion, I don't want to be the one overbearing because I am leading it. So when a friend asked me what I got out of facilitating, I really had to think about it as far as the word and how I got to share my interpretation of the word. So that's something that I'm praying about, thinking about, but definitely this go around, I want to make sure I'm more active than I was last time, and not from a teacher facilitator standpoint.
Of course. Thank you for that, Liz. And building those listening skills and balancing them with how we communicate is super important. We're going to have a great breakout session on that, and I'll talk more about our breakouts in just a moment. Mari, let me get your question.
Mr. Elijah, we were just bragging from our original group. I think we've broken up like 3 or 4 times as far as multiple.
You're right.
So it'd be good in the check-in just to celebrate that. I don't know if that's happening a lot, but
Yeah.
to be able to mark that and celebrate that, I think would be a really cool thing.
We do celebrate. Thank you, and help me celebrate Mari and Shelly, as well as I know
Ashley.
they've helped to get Hector in there. Ashley has helped to break some folks off, and all of you, you know who you are. Thank you so much for being willing to take that leap of faith with us. It makes a huge difference, and it opens up.
I didn't mean celebrating the people necessarily.
Oh, yeah.
Just the fact that it's happening.
It is happening, yes.
Group A split 3 times or 1 time. Or
Yeah.
Celebrate the people. I like that. That's good. That's good.
I love the humility, but yes, we celebrate that it is happening, and we celebrate the people who are doing it, and we know that it's going to only continue to happen more and more so that we can help to give this experience to all those people who we know are hungry for it. The other thing that I want us to think about is this dynamic of balancing new and returning villagers. Right? So some of you all are leading a same group in a same location, and you know you have, let's say, 7 or 8 of your people coming back, which means you will get possibly up to 7 new people who will be joining your village. And one of the things that we want to be really intentional about is how do we make room for both groups of people to have a great experience? How do we make room for all of God's children to feel integrated and to feel like they are part of what we are doing? So I want you to always be intentional and think about, what am I doing to make sure that this new person feels just as comfortable as Brittany, who's been with me for 2 seasons. I have a question, and we got a mic coming to you.
It's just a comment just to, I guess, reiterate what you were just talking about. We did have 2 new people, and what we did was we did vision boards in the beginning, so everybody could kind of get to know a little bit more about people intimately. So I believe it creates a safe space, and it also allows us to get to know each other.
Amen. Thank you. So that's a great idea for the vision board activity. Let's get a mic to Stephanie right up here.
Thank you. You might have covered it already, or you might cover it later. But have you made assignments? Because I know our village kind of changed, and don't know what.
Yeah. So we are still making assignments for those of you. Some of you know that you're coming back with your same 2 facilitators and hosts. Others of you, you know that there's limbo. So we have still been pushing a big recruiting push to get new people in. And so we will be pairing folks up right at the beginning of August, letting you know who those folks are. And then registration will start at the middle of August so people can come in and sign up. But we will let you know very soon in these next 2 weeks. We're doing one last recruitment push, and then I'll plug this. If you know somebody who might be gifted and good to serve along with you, because you know who some of your neighbors are, please send them to those sign-up links, alfredstreet.org/village. We do need a few extra people to come and help us lead.
So
Alana.
I know at the beginning of Village last year, there was talk of kind of shifting villages every season, and then a lot of us wanted to keep the same villages, so you guys let us do that. So what is the plan for villages moving forward? Because while I really liked having my same group, I noticed that we had a lot of drop off in season 2, and I don't know if that's because of schedule changes or like it just feeling really familiar, and that comfortability kind of turned into a casual kind of drop in and out situation.
Yeah. Yeah, so 2 things. So first of all, in terms of our procedure, so for Village, we've decided to adjust because we knew you all built these connections and these bonds, and we wanted you all to be able to keep those to a certain extent. So we do let people re-register for a village for up to 4 seasons in a row. The reason why we do that is because it creates a similar to the 2-year model that you've seen in some churches. Some of you have experienced small groups in other church where you sign up for 2 years. It's that longer haul commitment, but you're there together with those same individuals for 2 years. So we do allow for kind of up to 4 seasons in a row for people who do want that experience, but understanding that we still do expect at least 2 people to break off and go to a new group. But we do allow for the bulk of individuals to stay in that same environment, in that same hub and nucleus for up to 4 seasons. In terms of the attendance piece, though, regardless of who says they're willing to come back, we are still going to be, again, like I said earlier, strict about attendance. So if somebody says, hey, yeah, I'm coming back and I take this slot, and they don't meet the attendance requirement, doesn't matter if they've been with us for a season before or 2 seasons before, they're out and they're just going to make room for somebody else. And we're going to let people know this when they sign up, that we are this season going to be strict about attendance, and we're going to give you all some tools and some videos to play early on to let people know about what type of commitment is required to be with Village this season, and to know that it's okay. Life is seasonal, right? There are some people in this room who I wish would be here, but they're not here because they're in the last semester of that PhD program, or they're doing this and that, or they're having a major move with their family, or they're switching jobs, and so they can't be with Village this season. And that's okay. We celebrate that, we understand that, and we welcome people back to come back next season. That is why this program is seasonal, because we understand that the commitment that you may be able to make in the winter is not the same that you can make in the spring. And that's just how life works, and we are okay with that, and we understand that, and we'll continue to let things flow as they go. Any other questions out of this? I see Cassandra. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Good morning. I have a question. I know at our village originally we were listed as full with 12 people, yet only about 7 ever showed up at max, 7 or 8. And I was just wondering, is there a way to let other people in if people don't show up, or to confirm people who say that they're coming in? Because you run into people who want to be a part and it's full, but in our case, a majority of the people didn't show up.
Yeah. And you all didn't have a wait list where you all are?
I wasn't in charge of that component.
Okay, gotcha, no problem. But for most of you all, what you will have is you will have a wait list. And so as soon as those first group of people don't show up, we'll encourage you to call your wait list, call the next individual down on the list, and make sure we get them connected and plugged in to take those spaces. And some of us will help you. So some of you all got an email from me saying, hey, your wait list is running out, but I got some people in the neighborhood next to you, right? So if you are maybe, let's say, a Pentagon City person and you ran out of your wait list, I called some folk in Shirlington, moved them to your wait list who were waiting. And so we do the best we can to get kind of all these close neighborhoods connected so we fill as many spots as possible. We need your all's help with that, so continue to kind of update those rosters and let us know what's going on. We'll be monitoring your attendance closely, so we can ping you as well in case we see some spots and spaces available. I saw Cassandra and then Deacon Overby.
Okay, my question is, there are people currently in village groups that want to transition into other village locations. How do the logistics of that work for somebody that's already in village and just wants to expand their experience within village to another group?
Mm-hmm. So those individuals, you should have marked them on your roster as saying they wanted to switch. I think that was one of the options, and some of you all did tell us that. So we put that in the roster. So those folks who want to switch or need a new location, they'll be part of our pre-registration process. So they will have an opportunity, and I'll go over those dates at the end of the presentation. Pre-registration is important for those who want to switch. If you all have a spouse or a family member who's an adult who wants to be in a village, they can be welcome to be part of pre-registration, and we'll talk about more of that later. Deacon Overby, yeah.
In terms of the wait list, what would be a good cutoff time to include new people? Because if you've already kind of bonded, you don't want to go midstream and then let somebody else in. So
exactly. So our rule for that is 3 weeks, and so that's one of those things that's in your manual. After those first 3 weeks, we try not to add new people. Okay. After those first 3 weeks. Stephanie, did you have a question? Okay. Wonderful. So multiplication, new and returning villagers, and then the last thing that I want us to think a lot about is preparing for major transitions in life. As we walk into, as I said, this third official season of Village, or for some of us, our fourth season of Village, life happens, things change, and things shift in a major way. And so as we develop these bonds that are great and that we celebrate, we also understand that many people are going to experience a new curve or take a new turn in their life, and we have to be ready for that and ready to love them through that. I want to really thank and applaud some of you all as villagers. You reached out to let me know when people were going through major seasons of illness, and that is so important. But to understand that it's the reality of how life works, and that we need your bonds more now than ever if an individual goes through a season of sickness. Some of you all reached out to let us know that a villager or a couple in your village was experiencing a divorce or season of separation. That's kind of one of the tough things for us to deal with, but it's the reality of how life works as we continue to build community with each other for 2, 3, and 4+ seasons. I just want you all to know to be ready for that, and to know that there's no perfect curriculum, there's no perfect cliche or Bible verse that you can give to every situation, but you can do what we learned in the example from Job. We can give our presence to each other. Even through those seasons, it matters more and more that people have community, and that life transitions won't always be beautiful or perfect, but we love people through that. And so that's one other thing that I want you to be sure to keep in mind as we continue. Always remember our purpose as well. It's so connected, caring for community, how we're present, how we show up. It is super important for us in Village to know that you all are really doing an amazing kind of pastoral work. You all care for people. I mentioned that example of sickness because that matters. Sometimes you all will find out that somebody in Alfred Street is in the hospital before we as a church staff can find out, before a deacon finds out, before we can get there. So find out, so know what people are going on, be present, and then let us know immediately so that we can minister to that individual. And so I want to celebrate all of you who have done that really well. It's helped us to be able to get to some folk and care for some folk that we wouldn't have been able to care for. So that community piece is really important. And then the spiritual growth piece, always remember that we are trying to have people be a better Christian on December 13th than they were on September 16th. And that's not going to look the same for everybody. But as long as they grew in their faith a little bit in between those 3 months, we know we did our job well. Amen? All right. Next thing I want us to think about, you're going to be hearing a lot about gears over the next few months at Alfred Street. We're providing some tools, some focal points to think about how we accomplish what we are trying to accomplish. And gears, we think, are going to be one of the best ways for us to do that. There are kind of 5 important key values that we know that when we practice and we put these into place, we do what we're trying to do to the best of our ability. They're gifts that I know all of you all have. I just want you all to keep them in the back of your mind. First thing is always gratitude. We give thanks for all that God is doing. We give thanks for the relationships that we are being connected with. And we have just a spirit of gratitude and thanksgiving that just makes our spirits lighter and helps us to accomplish all that God is calling us to do. The next thing is to have a spirit of excellence. This is really important, and it's kind of a key value embedded here at Alfred Street. We try to do all that we do in excellence, do it to the best of our ability, and to never half-step anything, knowing that when we provide experiences of excellence, especially some of you hosts are great for this in hospitality, we celebrate the excellence that you bring to your village. The next is aspiration. So in knowing that we have gratitude for all that God has given us, we're always trying to excel to the next step. What are we aspiring towards? What are we trying to become? What are we pushing towards? How can we make this better than what it was last season? We want to think with a mindset of aspiration. And the next is resilience, understanding that difficulties will come, struggles will come, we'll have our setbacks, but how do we dust ourselves off, get back up, and try again the next time? We are resilient. That's just part of our DNA as a people. We know that we are able to always get back up. Even when we are knocked down, we have a mentality of resilience. And the last one is sacrifice. All of you all do this especially well. You sacrifice your time, your gifts, and your talent. Some of you all had 3 other places you could have been at on Saturday morning, but you're here. Thank you for making the sacrifice and to always continue to make that sacrifice. I know there are some weeks where 6:30 comes and it's your week for Village, it's your day for Village, and you're just like, I don't feel like it. Today, I got a migraine, it was a long day at work, I just can't do it. Thank you for making the sacrifice to continue to show up. It means the world to somebody. You may never know what a villager is going through in this past week and how your presence can have an impact on their life. So think about those gears of gratitude, excellence, aspiration, resilience, and sacrifice. Getting ready, I'm going to turn things over to Pastor Wesley in just a second, but after we wrap up here in this moment, what we're going to do is going to head to some breakouts. We're going to give you all a little break time, but at 10:45 we'll begin our 3 breakout sessions. Our host, you all will come back in here in the sanctuary with me. We'll talk about having a heart for hospitality and what that looks like at 10:45. Facilitators, you have 3 different breakouts you can go to. They should be on the schedule that you received on your way in, but I want to celebrate those individuals who are going to be leading those breakouts. Our first one is going to be on mental health, well-being, and self-care. It's going to be led by Dr. Carlton Green and Dr. Jimmy Wilson. I know they're finishing up another Impact Saturday session, so they're not in the room, I don't believe, but they're from our Agape ministry, and they're going to teach us some great tools and resources of things to understand how mental health works and some of the challenges that present themselves in Village. The next one's going to be on healthy conversation. How do we facilitate our, as Liz said, our talking, our dialogue, our listening, and how do we balance the conversation between all the different individuals and skill sets and personality types that we have in Village. That's going to be led by one of our facilitators, Frederica Sands, who's here, and then as well as Reverend Yvonne Hawkins, and we thank God for them and the work they're going to be doing. And then the last breakout session is going to be a deep dive into the curriculum and tell you all about what we're doing to continue to change and grow our curriculum, but also to have a deeper insight in terms of why this is important and to understand the backstory of how it's built, how it's prepared, because I know some of you all have had questions about the curriculum. Also, that's a great place to leave your suggestions. 2 of our great people from our curriculum team, Jessica Anderson and Minister Rasheem Rook, are going to be leading that session downstairs in the chapel. So there's 3 breakouts today. They'll take place from 10:45 to noon. Then from noon to about 12:45, you can enjoy your lunch downstairs in the multipurpose room. And then those same 3 breakouts will be offered in the same space. So you can catch one of the ones that you didn't get to catch this morning. You catch it in the afternoon from 12:45 to 2, and that will wrap up our day. So that's what our breakouts look like. And then next things I want you to think about are always next steps. The top of that list always is to pray, to make sure that you are being poured into, that you're hearing from God, that the Holy Spirit is guiding you as you get ready for this season. Pray for those new relationships that will be built. Pray for the conversations that will take place. Get yourself in the good spiritual place that you need to be ready for this new season. And then how many of you all got the emails with the pre-training materials? That should have been everybody in here. Now, how many of y'all can say, I didn't watch all those videos? I'm honest, Minister McDavid. I got to go back and read an essay or 2. Amen. That's one of the most important things that you can do between now and September. Make sure that you read those materials. Make sure that you watch those videos. They're there to help you, and they're there to make sure that we don't have to have a 3-day-long Village training experience. I know some of y'all, like, I couldn't be here on Saturday from 8 to 6 p.m. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to provide some things that you could learn from in your home and on your own time and your own convenience. But please be sure to check out those materials. Background checks. I know there have been lots of questions about background checks. What we're going to do is, to make it easier for you, I talked to our team across the street. We are going to send you an email with a link if you need a background check. If you don't need one, if your background check is newer than October 2018 here at Alfred Street because you volunteer in another ministry or you've already been doing this, then you won't get an email from us about a background check. But if you do need one, you will get an email from us beginning the week of July 29th through August 2nd. Everybody who needs a background check is going to get an email. Trust me, you'll get an email that week between July 29th and August 2nd saying that you need a background check. You'll click the link, you'll fill it out online, and it'll be done and easy like that. But know that we do need background checks from everybody. If we don't get one, you will not be able to lead a village this season, okay? And then the group assignments. The big thing that you all look forward to is finding that list of names and the new people that you're going to be able to create family with. And so you will get your group assignments as soon as registration closes. I think I've got a calendar here on the next slide. As I said, we have pre-registration during the 2nd week of August, and then regular registration will open up on Friday, August the 16th. We'll put some big hype and plug in here on August 16th on that Sunday weekend, and that's when registration will take place. As soon as all of the villages fill up, you will receive your rosters with the names of who is going to be in your village and all of those materials. Yes, Kimberly, do we have a mic nearby?
Here I come.
While Kimberly comes to the mic, let me just finish up the schedule so before I can answer her question. Pre-registration That is for individuals who, one, if they were waitlisted and never got into a group during the last season, those are the people we want to give priority to. So they get access to our kind of password-protected site to log in and pre-register. We don't want people to be waitlisted 2 seasons in a row. So they'll be invited to pre-registration. The other group that's invited to pre-registration, like I said, are people who already participated but need to switch a village. And then the other group, we do privilege you all, spouses and family members. Those of you, some of you have facilitated the village, and we don't want you, if you're facilitating for your husband, to not be able to join in for your village. So we'll make sure that you all get that link to be able to go into pre-registration. We don't want anybody who's living with you to not be able to be in the village that happens in your own house. Amen. But make sure they do take advantage of pre-registration, because as you all know, once August 16th gets here, once we open things up, things do fill up quickly, all right? And it's hard for me to move people out or get you in or fix the situation. So make sure you mark in your calendar August 8th through the 15th so that we can get your folks in and signed up, because we don't want anybody who's important to you to be left out of this important experience. And then finally, the last thing on you all's calendar is we will gather again for one of our preseason warm-up sessions. Some of you all remember we did this, I think, before last fall season. We didn't do it in the winter, but we definitely want to bring this back. It's just a great chance the week before the opening of the village season for us to gather together, for us to refresh those skills, for us to ask those last-minute questions, and then for our team to provide you with some important resources and materials that you all need. That will be the moment when you get your name tags, when you'll get your wristbands and your village covenant, so that you can make your commitments to each other, and as well as some other materials about our icebreakers and things of that nature. So all of that will be provided during our preseason warm-ups. You only have to go to one. And so we tried to offer them at very convenient times. The first one's going to be on Sunday, September the 8th, after our 11:30 service in the afternoon. So that one will be in our Kidd Street Annex space in 325. So we'll have one immediately after the last Sunday service on September the 8th. And then the next ones will be offered Tuesday through Thursday evenings, September 10th through the 12th. Those will start at 6 p.m. because we want to start those sessions and then let you all out to experience fall revival. We got a powerful revival happening that week at Alfred Street, and so that's why we scheduled it then, to make it convenient for you so you can get your preseason warm-up in and then head straight to revival and really feel ready and revived for all that God is doing in your village season. Kimberly, let me take your question, and I'm going to get ready to turn things over to Pastor Wesley.
Quick question. As a newbie, I'm glad to see you do background checks, and I have children, so I was thinking about this. I was like, I'm going to welcome these people. I don't mind, but I just wanted to know, in terms of picking the group, do we get to do that? Like, I was thinking, I saw when I registered, it said something if you wanted to do a group that has children or other groups that has similar common things.
Yeah.
If you're going to address that later or not, or the safety issue of all that.
Of course. So a few things. First, for the specialty villages is what Kimberly was referring to. Some of you all, when you registered, you saw that there was a question saying, would you be interested in one of our specialty groups? And so those are villages that are for women, villages that are for parents, villages that are for men or for seniors. We do try to accommodate those to the best of our ability. We can't always guarantee. What it does is it depends on how many people in your neighborhood signed up to possibly lead one of those specialty villages as well. So we strive when we can to link you with people who have like-minded interests and share those specialties. So if there are two people who live together nearby in Arlington who are both signing up saying, hey, I want to do a village for women, then we'll pair them together and make that work. But we can't always, depending on where people are signing up, guarantee a specialty village, but we do our best to try to get you that group as well. And yes, we do those background checks and verifications to make sure that you and everybody in your home is safe, and to know that if there ever is an incident where you do feel uncomfortable or unsafe, remember to contact us and let us know as soon as possible. We do have methods and tools for how to deal with that. Yes.
I just had one comment. So the first time I was in Village, I was just a participant, and I didn't receive information about the rest of the people in the group. And then the second time I was a host, and that list of the group went out to everybody. And for us, it was kind of challenging because we had a lot of women and there was only maybe 2 guys. And when one of the guys saw, he was like, oh, I'm not coming. It took a lot of convincing for him to actually come, so he actually did come, but I really think that it was a good idea to not let everybody else know besides the people who are in, the facilitators and the host, because it was kind of discouraging for them to see the dynamics of the group.
Yeah, so the rosters should not be shared by you all or by us with the entire group. The rosters, we do try to intentionally just share them with facilitators and hosts. And so I'll ask you all to not forward on your roster or share the roster ahead of time. And then for the other dynamic of my sister's question, we are working on getting more men in Village. I have heard all of you all's calls. I read the emails. I know some of y'all want some more men in your village for right and wrong reasons. But we are working. It's one of the old school, traditional, long-term challenges of church. You all know, some of y'all have been in black church your whole life like me. You all know the women show up and are ready to go, and the men take a little bit extra dragging. We are working, and thank God for the men who are in here, for Eugene and for Ron and for Charles and for Lois and Larry. Thank you all for leading by example. We are working on getting more men in Village. We have heard you. Amen. Any other last questions about the schedule? All right. Oh, yes, Zachlyn. I'll take Zachlyn.
Good morning. Just very quickly, for the breakout sessions today, are they all happening at the same time, so we need to pick what we go to?
Yes, you need to pick them. So unfortunately, you can only pick 2 of the 3. And so I know that's hard, right? Some of you all may want to go to all 3. We are doing recordings of these. So we're going to have the audio of all of these breakout sessions, as well as the handouts and the PowerPoints. They'll all be provided next week. So pick the 2 that you know will work best for you, and know that you will get the audio recording of the 3rd. But yes, they're all offered in the same places during both time slots, between 10:45 and noon, and then between 12:45 and 2 p.m., those breakouts. I'll probably be back a little bit for any last questions, but I do want to invite Pastor Wesley, because he wants to talk with you, as well as kind of answer Kimberly's first question, I know. And I want to thank you all. We'll be back in just a moment to continue our journey.
Thanks, Elijah. All right. Good morning, everybody. I am glad to be able to join with you all on this Saturday morning, and my objective over the next few moments is really just threefold, and prayerfully the first 2 will go quickly. The first, I want to thank you all. Any pastor who's concerned about welfare of church knows that small groups are necessary, that people need to be in connection and community, and that can either happen intentionally or it can happen unintentionally. And sometimes the unintentional groups are called cliques. And those are the things that eat away at the fabric of the family of faith. But we found, let me back up. So the first church I pastored in Massachusetts, we grew from about 60 members to 3,000. And we tried to create small groups, and all hell broke loose. We found that small groups work really well in our Euro-Caucasian brothers and sisters. Small groups did not work well with suntan folk. Anybody want to guess why small groups didn't work well with suntan folk? Just throw some answers out. You know your cousins. What went wrong? What went wrong? What went wrong? Too many chiefs, not enough Indians. Yes, that's basically one. Competition. Yeah. Gossip. Yeah. Not willing to share openly. Yeah. Without a lot of structure in place, it becomes chaos. Our biggest problem back then was someone's cousin coming in town who had a Bible and decided that they wanted a group, and they found 12 willing folk who were novices at Bible, and they came in and tried to bogart. Everyone's looking for an audience. Everyone's looking for a crowd. And so we learned back then, and have been able to implement now, that the key to making small groups work, no matter what name you give them, are the hosts and the facilitators. We're grateful for the people who sign up. We're grateful for the folk who create curriculum. But at the end of the day, hosts and facilitators are critical. You all are the ones that keep the decency and the order, even when the rule, the protocol, what we're trying to do may not be what you are supportive of, but because you are in line with the church, you keep things in order. We don't allow all hell to break loose in those groups. And so I want to thank you all because you've got a tough job ahead of you. Keeping people in order, staying with the curriculum, meeting every week, going through the discipline necessary for Village is an extreme task, and this thing breaks down at your level. If you all aren't committed to the protocol and the policies and the processes, this will not work. It will become chaos. And we've had, unfortunately, some instances where we've had to intervene where there were those who were trying to take over a group, or maybe a facilitator that wanted to diverge away from the curriculum. And so we share that openly with you, that preserving the unity of Alfred Street Baptist Church is our highest ideal. And we will preserve that at any cost. So we expect you all to abide by the policy, the protocol, the procedures, to stay within the curriculum. If there's an opportunity to make changes, we bring that to Elijah's attention. We deal with that in between Village sessions, not in the midst of a Village session. Okay? So there may be an opportunity to change some protocol about how names are shared and things like that. We do that outside of Village, not in the midst of it. So I'm asking you all to be committed to that, but at the same time giving you my gratitude for you being the ones that really make this work. Without your hosting, without your facilitating, without your commitment, Village becomes chaos, and chaos does not glorify God. So let me, on behalf of the church family, thank you in advance for this 12-week journey you're about to go on. And we know that it is an awesome sacrifice, not only of time and commitment, but also of ensuring discipline, of dealing with some, every now and then, some people who want to be rebellious, some people who want to go in a different direction. And we're not prone to allow that to happen, and we need you to back us on that. So let me thank you for that. The second Thanksgiving I want to give is to Elijah. When I first spoke the term small group to Elijah, I had no clue what it would become. Just knew it was something necessary. And his research and diligence and putting things together and going through the beta testing, it's amazing when you give something to someone and they bring something back to you that's 10 times better than what you envisioned, but then you stand and take credit like, that's what, this is what I told him to do. Amen. He's doing, I had no clue, but it's a sign that God has gifted him for this, and God has called him to this. And my full confidence and trust is in him. You don't have to micromanage when you stay in your lane and operate under the gift that God has given you. So I have no desire to micromanage Village. I'm grateful that we have a competent young man who has a vision and a passion for it, and I want to thank him openly again for all the labor he's done to make Village a reality. As you go off into this new Village season, there are a few things we need you to do. Elijah's alluded to some of them, and I want to reiterate. Number one, we need you to continue not only to keep the protocol and the policy and keep things moving in order as we've envisioned, but we need you to help identify leaders, the potential next group of hosts and facilitators. As Elijah said, we're Bebe's kids. We don't die, we multiply, right? And for those that don't know that cultural reference, my apologies. We multiply, and multiplying requires other hosts and facilitators. We intentionally want groups to be good so we can break them up. And I know that's hard. People don't like to be broken up. But in order for everyone to be able to experience this, in order for us to meet that goal of 40%, we need to double our hosts. We need to double our facilitators almost every season. And so within your group, you're always keeping an eye out for those who may be good conversation leaders, those who may be good hosts, and be able to share that with us so we can go to them. Normally, we found that people won't volunteer, but if they're asked, they will. And so if you give us a list of 3 or 4 people, we will ask them, and prayerfully they will say yes. But we're asking you to keep an eye open for hosts and facilitators. Your group is best when it multiplies. This is kind of like a pyramid scheme. The more you get underneath you, amen, the higher up you rise. That's just the way it works, right? You got to get more hosts and facilitators under your belt. Third thing, so first, keeping the policy and the procedures. Second is looking for hosts and facilitators. Third, I'm asking you to please be certain you take care of yourselves. You're engaging in a new level of ministry that requires not just mental and spiritual, but also physical For some of you all, hosting in a home. By the time these 12 weeks are over, you ain't going to see nobody in your house ever again. There's a lot that goes into this, and taking care of self is critical for ministry. Gardner Taylor, one of my mentors in ministry who I read all the time, once said that sometimes the best gift you can give God is a well-rested body. Right? To be able to rest, to care for yourself. Diet is important, exercise is important, because church folk will wear you out. Church folk will raise your blood pressure. Amen, amen, I'm fighting it now. So I really do want to press upon you the need to balance, right? You can't add this to your plate without something coming off, right? So if you were already full and now you're signing up to host, that's going to stress you out. When it stresses you out, it's going to stress him out. And the last thing we want is for y'all to break up having hosted a village. That doesn't look good on the church. Amen. So balance, 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 balance. This is a major assignment for you. And I need you to take care of yourselves. We don't want to have your funeral at the end of a village season. We want you to be healthy and enjoying this. So whatever you got to do to get that healthy balance and maintenance in your life, please do so. It's important, it's important, it's important. Now, the last thing I want to do, I want to answer. So one of the things I love to do when I'm in a small group like this is answer people's real questions about Alfred Street. I believe sometimes the best way for you to be a leader is to be in the know. Communication is critical for us. So how long do we have, Elijah? About 15 more minutes? To 10:30. Oh, great. So here's what I'm going to do. I don't do this often, but I'm going to let you ask whatever you want to know about Alfred Street Baptist Church. Whatever question you have about anything at all, and I'm gonna give you an answer. I'm gonna start with Kim's question that she asked. I promise I'll come back to, and then so that you are in the know, so that you feel that you are part of the leadership. If there's anything you want to know about vision, about monies, about policies, about where we're headed down the road, I'll be glad to answer. So the first question Kim asks is there any thought about another location? As you know, right now we have a lot of eggs in the basket to expand this campus, to go south of this wall right here. If we do what we've envisioned, this wall will come down and we'll go all the way back out to Wolf Street. I will tell you that there are some challenges with that right now. There are some major challenges, particularly because we have found a flow of stream of water that interferes with the second level of parking underneath this building. So for us to build on site, we would only gain about 120 more parking spaces. And for the cost of the building, which is coming in now over 88 million, we are in a real prayerful pause, right? 88 million will get us the seats we need, but it won't get us the parking we need. And I am working alongside a group of leaders who are trying to discern if that's the best future for our church. We're never gonna move this building, but is it wise to invest a debt that will cost our grandchildren for 100 and something parking spaces? So there's dilemma with that. We're prayerful. There's always been some background talk, and now seems to be rising up a little bit more about a secondary site. I was always against one church in two locations. I just felt that I didn't feel like God called us to that. But now it may be the only real viable option for us. And so there's been some preliminary looking around in different areas. We've kind of made a decision that we're not going to go across the bridge. The legal implications of that and all that's involved with going into PG County is just too much. And we found that most of our active members are actually south. And so if we are looking right now, it's in the Springfield area for potential properties. To present to the leadership, to talk about whether it makes sense to have another site where we have 2 worship services over there and 3 over here. But that decision hasn't been made yet because we're still committed to trying to build first. And it's only after we get through some more of the machinations of that, our church council, which is your highest level of leadership, has our annual retreat August 8th and 9th, and this is part of our prayer for discerning that we'll be able to bring back to the church. So that's a full honest answer right now. We're committed to building. We're thinking about another site, and money may push us. Okay. You have follow-up to it? Yeah, I did say you could ask anything, and I knew you were going to take me to word on that. Hold on, they're going to bring you the mic, Kim.
For people who come to these meetings, I imagine they want to know stuff about Alfred Street. Do we give them that email that Elijah gave us that, hey, I don't know, because I don't know.
You say you want to know things, you mean more like the logistics and the operational stuff that we're doing?
Yeah, like, well, how do I find out more about Alfred Street outside of, okay, well, go on the website, there's 80 ministries or however, and plug in and get involved, and whether, okay, well, I live up in, Howard County or whatever, how do I get more plugged in? And I'm like, oh, Village is it, or, how do I plug them in?
Mm-hmm. So definitely Village is our first foray into getting plugged in. There are 80 some odd ministries, and one of them has to meet someone's fancy. But beyond that, I want to encourage you all as hosts and facilitators to encourage people to email the office. It is so one of the priorities I press upon my staff is customer responsiveness, that we respond to emails and phone calls within a 24-hour business window. And even if the email is not sent to the right person, they ought to make certain it does get to the right person. So Rosette, Graham, and Lolita Human are the highest ones I would recommend to email. They know where to send the email to get the right information back to the member. So if you have a member in your village who's frustrated or wants more information, I definitely encourage you to have them email either Rosette Graham or Lolita Human. Rosette Graham is my executive assistant, and Lolita Human is the church administrator. Between the two of them, the emails get to the right place and an answer gets out prayerfully within a 24-hour business window. So that we believe that the more information you have, the less frustrated you'll be, even if you don't like the answer, as long as somebody answered you. That's what matters most, right? Come on, let's get into good questions. Who wants to know where the money's going? No, I'm joking. Go ahead. Don't ask me no money question. No, I'm playing. Go ahead.
Good morning. My name's Alfred Baker. I have a question about discipleship groups.
Mm-hmm.
And how, now with Village, what's the vision in terms of the direction for discipleship groups? Those who are part of Village, that's a commitment for a number of weeks. What can we do more with discipleship group for those who do not want to commit for that period of time? My discipleship group has probably gotten together once since I've been a part of the church, so more emphasis, I think, could be placed on.
So there is no desire right now to extinguish the discipleship groups, but to enhance them, and I know that that's ongoing discussion with the deacons. So here's the problem. When Alfred Street was small, the discipleship groups functioned as the small villages, right? Because they could be 40, 50, 60 large. Right now, each discipleship group is probably close to 300 members, right? Which means it's 3 times larger than the average Protestant church. The average Protestant church in America is 70 members. So our discipleship groups, just out of the growth of the church, outgrew their purpose, which was to create fellowship among members and connectivity. So now one of the ideas, that's floating is for the discipleship groups to be more of our service links within the church, so that although they may have brunches every now and then and fellowships, it serves 2 purposes. One, that's the grouping for the deacon to be kind of like a lay pastor over. So those 300 members, the 2 or 3 deacons over that group are the ones who reach out to all those members throughout the year to be certain you're okay. Is there anything we need to be in prayer for? Is there anything we need to bring to the pastor? If you're in the hospital, that's the first point of contact. And we know that even that's too large, but it's the best we have right now for the deacons to be involved in the life of the members, so that you as a member, even if we're not doing anything collectively with all 300, you know that if you have any crisis or issue, that your deacon's going to try to be as responsive as possible. So that's the first part of that group. The second one would be for those discipleship groups to enact service projects and mission projects within the life of the church. We're finding out that putting out a call for mission work either gets too many people or not enough. So what my vision would be is to have the discipleship groups throughout the year target local mission projects that they want to be involved in, and then encourage members of that discipleship group to join in with them and say, hey, next Saturday, we're going to Sister Ethel's house. She's one of our elderly members. She needs her yard cleaned out and her basement painted. Who wants to join us to go over to Sister Ethel's house, right? So we identify projects, especially within our own church, that we can do to help our own members, and those discipleship groups form like a small church. The villages form small communities for spiritual growth, and that's no longer the goal of the discipleship groups. The discipleship groups are not to have Bible study, they're not to have any small group talk, but it's more fellowship and mission work together, and then a deacon who's involved in the life of those members. That's what it's for. Now the challenge, and I want to give my deacons credit because they're getting much better at this. The challenge was about 4 or 5 years ago. The discipleship group you got in was kind of like being drafted in the NBA. Like, you know, you could wind up with the Suns, you could wind up with the Orlando Magic, you could wind up with the Hornets, or you could get like on the Warriors, you know, and just you luck out because you got in one of those strong discipleship groups. And then there were some groups that kind of, you know, you don't care, we don't care, let's just say we exist. So there's a new push with the leadership of the deacon that started actually under Deacon Johnson to be certain that if you are a discipleship group leader, you're trying to make that discipleship group, we want them on par, right? So we're doing some shifting of deacons. If there's some deacons who are a little bit fatigued because they've been doing it for years, rotating them in. We're ordaining new deacons coming up. We've got a new class coming. So that prayerfully we get to 3 deacons over each discipleship group. So we're band-aiding our way back to health with the discipleship groups, and prayerfully within the next year or two, you'll see that, especially when these new deacons come on board, because they always bring some life. So we'll add 1 new deacon to a fledgling discipleship group who will hopefully bring in some energy and, you know, rev them up. But it's a tough sell. It's tough to fix something that was already in place that we don't want to abandon because it does serve a purpose. Okay. We'll go over here and then we'll come in. Liz, what you got to add? You know everything. You hear all the time. I'm joking, Liz. Go ahead. Yes.
Okay, so I know that you mentioned that all of us as hosts and facilitators aren't really supposed to go outside of protocol and kind of structure, but what happens when you have a participant in your village who is trying to start a prayer line for our village? She's trying to start this person is trying to start kind of independent service projects, and kind of bringing in like her own scriptural interpretations to the meetings and things. How would you recommend that we kind of intervene when there's a member doing that?
Right. So let me say this. One, we don't want to demonize anyone for that. I mean, that's great. That's a great idea. It's a great vision. Village is not the vehicle to create it. So after the direct conversation, which is going to be a little difficult, remind them that this is not the purpose of Village, I would suggest that you facilitate them to Elijah, right? Pass that information off, because then we intervene with the conversation to hopefully redirect them as to how it can get started. We've had people try to circumvent curriculum with their own Bible study, and that is not the purpose of Village. You do not abandon this curriculum for someone else's desire or someone else's teaching or someone else who wants to start a prayer line. That is great. We'll be glad to help you get that started in another venue. Village is not it, right? So one of the things that I told my son, he knows he's maturing, and I know you all are all mature, but this is how you know you're maturing, when you can look at someone and say no, right? And I'm not cursing at you. I'm not being offensive to you. I'm not being unchristlike to you. I'm telling you no. Like, this is not what this is for. I'm going to pass this on to Minister McDavid, and he will be in contact with you. Thank you. Right? Because we really do want to keep it in order. If the chaos starts, it spreads like a cancer quickly, and then we can never get it back. And then the villagers are just doing whatever they want to do. And we don't believe that glorifies God at all. So it's a direct conversation, right? A direct conversation to let them know this is not the purpose of Village. It's a great idea. It's not the purpose of Village. We'll direct you to the office where they can help you get this started more efficiently. Okay? Right, okay. Liz, you got the mic? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Pastor, what is your vision of mission in Africa? I know we're doing Ghana, but it is just one time, or is this something that we're going to continue to look at? We've had discussions about Ethiopia, and that's the direction I'm kind of heading in.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you right now, my vision for Africa is somewhat limited by my limited exposure, right? So we have strong partnerships in both Sierra Leone and even more so in Liberia, where we have continuing partnerships that we feed into. Ghana was a new opportunity, and initially Ghana started as a let's tour. But when Emmett and I went over, one, the touring is very short, and two, there's need there. So we partnered with the Ghana Baptist Convention to create mission projects. So now, if you go on Ghana with us next year, it's the Mission and Memory Tour. So we're not only doing the memory of the slave trade, but also their mission work that we're doing in digging wells and some other projects that we'll be doing while we're in Ghana. Beyond that, I'm very limited. So as opportunity comes, let me give you an example, Liz. Just about twice a year, some invitation comes to do some huge crusade in Africa that I turn down. I don't know these people, I don't know the partnership. I'm not T.D. Jakes, I'm not gonna go over there and thousands of people show up, so let's not do that. Let's do something more practical. If given the opportunity to establish a partnership with some Ethiopian work, I would jump on it in a minute. To take a trip over with Emmett, some others, and set it up and then send members over. So we're basically building this kind of case per case. The Ghana one will exist after we're done. We'll continue to have Liberia. We'll continue to have Sierra Leone. And if you and I speak, we can target Ethiopia next. We love finding new things that are very practical. Yep, definitely. Yep, we have a question. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it's a follow-up to the going outside of the curriculum question. Is recommending books or other resources that you've personally found helpful, is that going outside? If someone's going through something, you're like, oh, I read this book, I think it's really great.
No, not at all. But what we're in Elijah, correct me if I'm wrong, what we're trying to do is prevent that book from becoming the discussion material for the village group itself. There's nothing wrong with recommending another resource for someone who's struggling. What we want to do is avoid it circumventing the curriculum for that village session.
And just to add on to that, one of the things that we have with some individuals is that we have people in the village who are looking for a deeper dive past the curriculum. And so Dr. Judy is taking the lead. We've heard your comments and feedback. We're going to have 2 or 3 meeting recommendations per every sermon series that come from us that we have checked and verified. That'll be great for if a person in your village says, hey, I want so much more beyond the sermon. Dr. Judy is going to help us prepare those, and our curriculum team will help get those to you, so you'll have them.
There's a lot of planning that goes on that people may not know that helps answer that question. So we leave Sunday and we're going to South Carolina for a few days in retreat so we can map out the entire year of sermon, village, Bible study, themes, the whole 9, so that it's all coordinated. And questions like that can be answered because Judy now knows what resources tie into the sermon series that tie into the village group so that all that is coordinated. And I ask you all to pray for us. We'll leave Sunday after church. We'll be back on Wednesday. And we're going to prayerfully discern God's vision for 2020. Mm-hmm. 2 more. Where we at? Oh, yep, Jackie. Well, everybody on this side, y'all, anybody get no? Okay, all right. Jackie.
Yes, my question is how should we respond, the facilitators or maybe the host, to a participant that may have a challenge or I don't want to use testimony, maybe challenge/testimony during the session that has nothing to do with what the topic of discussion is at that time. So because this may happen and has happened, should the participants be informed at the very beginning of the session that these discussions will not be held, or we're just going to stick to the topic? Should we ignore?
So I'm going to give a dangerous answer and let Elijah clean it up if need be. We don't want to offend or stifle in the sense that someone's testimony is valid for them and squashing someone that, but you as a facilitator or host have to determine, is this starting to veer us off? And if so, maybe recommend that this be another subject dealt with in another venue, or we pass on to Dr. Judy, or we pass on to Elijah to take a look at and come back for discussion. I don't want to squash people or make them feel like they have been wounded in a village session, but at the same time, we don't want to get too far off the path because now the whole group is suffering because of that, right? But part of, and if I'm correct, part of the opening of Village allows for this interaction with one another and prayer for concerns to be lifted up so that we can. You will set the tone at the beginning of Village that our goal is to follow the curriculum, as much as Holy Ghost possible, but at the same time be discerning of when it may be Christ-like and compassionate to pause for a moment.
And just to add to that, page 43 of your handbook, one of the important pages that talks about the schedule and outline of how every week should operate. We are very intentional of saying that when you first gather at 7 o'clock, we have the random free flow conversations. It's a good time to catch up, to decompress and to talk about that stuff. But by the time we hit 7:30, or some of you all start earlier than that, make sure that we at least have 1 hour, full hour dedicated to just talking about the curriculum guide for that week. And we'll have some closing time after that to also pray, share testimonies and other things that may be slightly less related to the sermon. But whatever you do, make sure that you are at least dedicating a full hour to digesting the sermon, because yes, that person's testimony and story is important, but there's also probably 11 other people who are really hungry for digesting this word.
Where are we at? You bring some cupcakes? Y'all, she is gifted in cupcakes. Let me take this one that's already got the mic, and while you work on my cupcakes.
Yeah. Hey, Pastor Wesley from Eureka Sands. This is a more general question, not village specific. Some churches have executive pastors. Mm-hmm. Is that within Dr. Judy's purview, or is that a separate position?
No, so, apples and oranges, it's all about function. So in most churches where you hear the term executive pastor, you should think our church administrator, right? Because it's more of the business aspect. We are diversified a little bit differently. One, there are no other pastors at Alfred Street, so I'm not your senior pastor, I'm your pastor. We don't have any other pastors. There's not a youth pastor, there are assistants to the pastor for such and such. Alfred Street was clear, we didn't want this conflagration of pastor. Right? Dr. Judy is, so if I sit as pastor, then I have the left arm and the right arm. The left arm is ministerial, the right arm is administrative. So my left arm ministerial, Dr. Judy is ultimately in charge of. She is a senior assistant to the pastor. Lolita Humans, Deacon Lolita Humans is a church administrator. She is more of what you've heard when you hear executive pastor. She runs all the operations. So if I'm chief executive officer, she's chief operating officer, and Judy is chief ministry officer. And they oversee those different branches for me so that I can be freed up for the other assignments that I have to do as pastor. But no, we don't technically have an executive pastor. Okay? Sandra.
Good morning, my name's Shalonda. I had a multi-part question. The first part was I heard that Awana wasn't coming back next year, and that my assumption is Village is intended for adults, but when I filled out the application for hosting, it said, would you have space for a child or children in another room, which is fine, but I wasn't sure, does that mean they should be not in earshot? Is this meant for adults? Is there a vision to possibly have Village for teenagers or kids if Awana is not coming back?
Okay. Carlton, was the final decision made on Awana? I wasn't brought in on the loop on that one.
I'd like to talk to you about that sometime, Pastor, but yeah, at this particular time, Awana's going to go on hiatus for a year. There's a Awana homeschool vision, so we'll actually have some classes where we'll teach people how to do home discipleship. We're looking at coming back in the 2020-21 season. Mm-hmm. But we are looking to continue the high school component of Awana because it requires less volunteers logistically and things like that. So it became a volunteer challenge, and I asked the church for some help, and I look at it from an Awana standpoint, and they look at it as across all ministries with a volunteer challenge, and so they wanted some more time to study it, so that's kind of where we are.
So it is going to take it highest for a year off, but in terms of the villages, Elijah can answer that.
Yeah. So Shalonda, that question that you saw in that form is really just an initial survey and beta testing question. We're just trying to figure out for all of our hosts whether or not you all may have had space for us to possibly have, right, children who are having dialogue. So one of the questions always with small groups is, what do we do if a parent has children and you're meeting every week and you want something for your kids? We are still in a discernment process. We did beta tests, and I want to thank God for people like Mari and Andrea. They did test a session of a village where the adults met, and then in the other room we had one of our child care workers work with the kids to have activities. We're discerning if that's the best model, or at other churches we have seen people where they just have the village gather and then we give people reimbursement for child care, right, to help take care of that. Well, because we know what is important. We don't want parents to feel like they have to miss out on this experience, but we also know sometimes during the evenings, it's not always the best time for children to have an activity or a structured curriculum. And so we're going to discern with the rest of the church leadership on what's the best way for our children and youth to continue to have ministry, let's say during the week. We know we have great stuff on the weekends.
We're always making new, always creating new.
Mari, I know Mari has a follow-up, and that's probably directly connected to that.
And I think that is a good question. I'm glad I was on there because I know that I was, in other villages, instances like if a babysitter falls through for that night specifically, not an ongoing thing, does the group feel comfortable with a child being in the room next door? So even if it's not a full village for parents or anything like that works out, just making sure the full group is comfortable, with children and so forth. So
Amen.
Thank you for that question.
And to all of the parents in here, I will be hitting some of you all up individually, but please reach out. I want to talk to you all to get a sense of kind of what would work best going forward. God has not called me into parenthood yet, so I don't understand all the ins and outs of how that thing works. So I will
have my 2 for a weekend. That'll help you.
So I will be looking to hear from you all as we kind of develop and make these decisions on how we can best minister to everybody.
Yeah. You haven't stated how many villages would be in this session or season yet, but I was wondering if you could speak towards meeting the goal of 2021 of having 40% of the church in villages, and specifically whether or when we're going to go to 3 seasons a year.
Yes. So we meet the goal of 40% by multiplication, and that's why we stress that so many times. Where we are right now, like I said, we wrapped up the spring season with 55 villages, and so right now we're on par to add a few more. We'll probably get to about 78 or so is where we're at right now. I'm still recruiting, and like I asked you all to help me recruit because I would love to be at 100 for this fall, but we need some extra bodies in order to get there. So that's how we're working with that. And then the other part of your question, yes, we are moving to 3 seasons. So beginning with this cycle, we will do fall. These dates are on the website from September to December. We'll have a break for Christmas, and we'll start up very quickly early in January with a winter session. The winter session will close right before Easter. We'll have a break for that Holy Week, Easter time, and then we will have a spring session that comes in after Easter, ends before the end of June, and we'll always keep summer free for us to have rest and rejuvenation.
Jacqueline, and then is it Ash? Okay.
Is there a feedback loop to the pastor or to the rest of the staff if there's conversation that leads to, so I didn't really like this, or I didn't quite understand that? Is there some kind of way that we're feeding that back to you all?
Yes, so organic feedback we always encourage. village@alfredstreet.org, that's your first place to go with questions, feedback, concerns, comments, amazing testimonies. Send it there. Our team funnels all of that to the direct places, so we'll hit you back with a response hopefully as quickly as we can for questions. For feedback, I am constantly forwarding that on to our staff. Also, you all know you get our surveys. I know some of you all don't like the surveys. The numbers are not where they should be in response. We've tried to limit it to just 2 surveys during a season now, so you'll just have an opening survey and an end of season survey, but please fill those out. We need those response numbers higher, but I do share that data with our team, with Dr. Judy and everybody else, and we do make decisions based on all of that great survey data.
On a weekly basis, though, are we communicating anything back to you or to the leadership team?
It's great. If I get an email from you every week, I'd love it. Yes, we don't solicit or mandate that. We do mandate that you give attendance each week, but I would love a feedback email or just here's a quick summary of what happened in our village this week. This is what we love, what we didn't go so well. I would love to hear that.
Just a few more so we stay on time. Yes.
Hi, Marcia from Village Bowie. One of my questions is about the ministers or the deacons that were assigned to the villages. This is my second time doing it, and I only had one call, and it was really great from Reverend Siobhan. And I found that that was really a connective part of the village where we got to hear from the leaders, particularly when you're out and some of the members, they don't come to church as much, but the village is the one time where they're able to speak to someone like a deacon or a minister.
Yeah.
So is that going to continue? Is that an ongoing assignment for them?
We are continuing to groom more. We call them village guides. So those are more senior members of Alfred Street. Some of you all had a deacon or a minister who did reach out to you. We're working to make sure we have the bandwidth to get those people available. If you do not have a village guide or you're not assigned one, email village@Alfred Street. If not, if you don't have somebody, I am your guide. Okay, and I'm available at the church office via phone or email for those questions and concerns.
Last question right here.
Just a question. Before I came to Alfred Street, I know there's like a great loss of like the, I guess you call it Generation X for like coming to church, like between like 23 and 35, 40-ish. But I seen Alfred Street does it well, and I wanted to know for like Kaya purposes or YAM purposes, I know the Kaya Cool Down is coming on, and I just had an idea. I didn't know who to project it to, but similar to Kaya Cool Down, I'm from New York, they had this ministry called 7 Ways of Praise, which is for that group to kind of connect to the ministry and just to church and to the Christian beliefs, that they would have this sort of Kaya Cool Down every month at a specific venue. And I was just wondering whether Kaya ever thought of that as kind of like a parents' night out or a way to bring youth together. It seems like you guys are really good at it. I've only been here about a year.
So I will pass it on, but I can also tell you on the website, I think it's Kaya Experience is the website that they'll take that recommendation. The challenge that we've faced with Kaya is always just keeping things fresh and never getting too routine with it. So very recently they started doing the summer Bible studies, which was really good, that we found out like 110 people met outside in the park just to talk about some of the previous Kaya things. So they're always looking for ways to gather together outside of the regular Wednesday without overdoing it, without overkilling it, without having a negative impact on the actual Wednesday service itself. So I would direct you to either send an email or know that I will pass that on to Brooke and her team when next we speak about the possibility. I know it's logistically kind of difficult in DC, locking up venue and gathering people together. So that's kind of been why they've only done it in August and Kaya Cool Down. And of course they got budgetary restraints, but I'll definitely pass along the idea of maybe having more than just the Wednesday, but maybe a social opportunity as well throughout the month. Because it has worked. It's worked well in the past. The question is, could we do it every month? You know, maybe we do it every other month or once a quarter. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Are we done? Oh, we're done? Oh.
We're gonna press.
But wait, hold on, because Deacon Beverly Overby had her hand up. I'm gonna let her ask. Deacon B. Overby?
I had 3 village members who were not church members. Very engaging. You'd see them around church all the time, and it was quite a surprise. 2 of the 3 joined while we were in village. We went through that process. The other one, I didn't want to go beyond Christian encouragement for them to join. So could you give me some kind of feedback as to how we could handle that kind of situation?
Everyone's journey happens at their own time, right? And we're intentional about making sure that we let you all know first when you get your roster whether or not somebody is a member or a non-member. And some of you all have noted that some people didn't realize that they were non-members and they hadn't finished their process. Oftentimes that's the bulk of the people. But we do let you all know that there are lots of people who are testing out Alfred Street, and in their own time, in their own way, they will slowly come. What we're doing is just focus on that engagement and connection funnel. So the first thing is, even before I tell you to encourage you to join join, let me see what's the next level of connection you can make with this space and this place. So there's got to be a service project or another ministry they can get engaged with. And we just know by the time they've spent time in Village for a season or 2 seasons, or by the time they've helped with Feed the 5,000 or sang in a choir, after they finish that process, we know we've given them probably all the impetus they need in order to walk down this aisle. And if that doesn't work, if they're not feeling that, then probably it's not a good idea for us to push them beyond that. But think about what's the next way they can use their gifts in this space to get connected and meet more people in this community.
So let me say this then as we get ready to wrap up. I'm excited about Village. I'm grateful for the backbone that it puts to our ministry, and very grateful for you all and the sacrifice that you're going to make for this upcoming season. I pray sincerely. When I say that, I don't mean I'm going to pray that at the end of these 12 weeks, you're excited to do it again. That you've learned what I've learned, and that is the joy of dealing with people, whether they're at their best or at their worst. But you have a sense that God has used you. And that's what keeps us connected in ministry. One of the hardest things for me to press upon people who we hire at the church is to recognize that we are in the people business. That is what we do, people, right? This isn't about choir, it's not about music, it's not about money, it's about people. And if we're not building relationships, if we're not connecting people, then we really aren't a church. And so I want to thank you all for helping us become what we say we are, which is a church. And we avail ourselves to answer any questions you have throughout the season, jump in on any problems, put any fires out. This is not the first merry-go-round, so we know some of the things that are going to come up, and there are going to be some new ones that come up. That's just the way things evolve. But as you go forth, please know that your labor is not in vain, that it is very much appreciated by the church, by our leadership, by our staff, by your pastor. And I pray for you all for just a successful journey in relating with and connecting to people. May God's hands be upon this Village season. So thank you all very much. Questions are over. Don't ask me nothing else for the rest of, I'll catch you at annual meeting if you got any questions. But no, Elijah, what's next?
So Q&A for Villages will continue in your breakout sessions. Your facilitators are equipped to lead those. We're going to take a break at 10:47. We will start at 10:47 with your breakouts. Hosts are here. Everybody else, pick the breakout that's most applicable to you. But this is your time to use the restroom, take a break, have a breather, and then 10:47, enjoy your breakouts. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of the day.
You have my number. I told you I came across here to give you as an event center. So I'm like talking to an attorney and that's a whole lot. Kids family catering, which cater is family catering, they cater our wedding, which is a second generation thing. Like
I am so excited to be part of a group in Northeast DC that has Alfred Street members right in our neighborhood.
Yeah, I believe in the concept of a village. I grew up with the village. I lost my mom when I was 13, and the village raised me. So when I think of the village concept, I think of a group of people who can come together, they can love, and they can learn together. It's a great concept.
village looked out for me during one of the worst seasons of my life. I'll cherish those relationships forever.
So we had a variety of ages in our village, so it actually helped to make the conversation really rich. And it was good to have everybody bring in their unique experience into this village because it helps to cement everything that we are learning through this process.
I am so excited to be part of a group in Northeast DC that has Alfred Street members right in our neighborhood.
Yeah, I believe in the concept of a village. I grew up with the village. I lost my mom when I was 13, and the village raised me. So when I think of the village concept, I think of a group of people who can come together, they can love, and they can learn together. It's a great concept.
My village looked out for me during one of the worst seasons of my life. I'll cherish those relationships forever.
So we had a variety of ages in our village, so it actually helped to make the conversation really rich. And it was good to have everybody bring in their unique experience into this village because it helps to cement everything that we are learning through this process.
I am so excited to be part of a group in Northeast DC that has Alfred Street members right in our neighborhood.
Yeah, I believe in the concept of a village. I grew up with the village. I lost my mom when I was 13, and the village raised me. So when I think of the village concept, I think of a group of people who can come together, they can love, and they can learn together. It's a great concept.
My village looked out for me during one of the worst seasons of my life. I'll cherish those relationships forever.
So we had a variety of ages in our village, so it actually helped to make the conversation really rich. And it was good to have everybody bring in their unique experience into this village because it helps to cement everything that we are learning through this process.
I am so excited to be part of a group in Northeast DC that has Alfred Street members right in our neighborhood.
Yeah, I believe in the concept of a village. I grew up with the village. I lost my mom when I was 13, and the village raised me. So when I think of the village concept, I think of a group of people who can come together, they can love, and they can learn together. It's a great concept.